Welcome, everybody. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we have a mission to change the world one brave word at a time. And here today to help me with that mission are some of the fabulous authors of a new book we have coming out, Find Your Voice, Save Your Life, 3 Powerful Healers, Spiritual Stories. These women are sharing powerful stories of their spiritual journeys, and I happen to be one of them this time in this book, which is pretty exciting for me. But this is the 3rd book in a series by lead author Dianna Leeder and part of her Voices of Women project. And I'll start by giving Dianna a big thank you for getting this group of amazing women together. Dianna has a big mission to help women find and share their voices. And today I am super excited to introduce you to several of the really profound voices in this book. Welcome, ladies. I'm really happy to have you here. So I have Jessica Chardulius, and she is a passionate dreamer, creator, and pharmacist, happily frolicking in the shadow of the Rocky Mountains. Maysha founded As Long as You're Breathing, to bridge the gap between practitioners and the people who need them, and to share her personal focus on authenticity, joy, and unconditional love to first heal ourselves, then the world. And I have Judith Ann. She's a professional writer, author, and intuitive who runs Joy Among Wonder, a company that offers workshops and one-to-one sessions for creative writing, intuitive development, and channeled readings from spirit. I cannot wait to ask you guys about this beautiful book. And Jessica, you're going to start our party today. So tell me about the amazing chapter that you wrote.
Sure. Thanks so much. Mine is chapter 18. It's called Healing Through Loss, How Our Dreams Guide Us. And it's a very personal story to me. It's about losing my first parent, my stepmom, and how over the course of the last couple years, she's visited me in my dreams and other people that I care about, and helped walk us through the profound grief that we felt when we lost her.
Oh my goodness. So can you tell us, had you had experiences like that when you were younger, before that happened? Tell me a little bit about that journey with that.
Yeah, it started first when I lost my grandmother, and she shortly before she passed away said, I'll always find a way back. And I was like, hey, Grandma, sure you will. And then as the years passed after she passed away, I did occasionally see her. The dream is always very similar. I meet her on a deck and we chat, we catch up on life. And then years after that, I randomly spoke to a psychic in Ireland, and she said, did you know that the veil is thin with you? And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. But she said, don't be surprised if, as you go through life, people that you've lost find a way to communicate, because you're more in tune with them and they can reach you. So it's been, frankly, a blessing. You know, some of my friends say that must be really scary, but honestly, it's a gift. It's such a gift to be able to know that those that I've lost are just living a life beyond life.
Why do you think it's scary for people?
Well, I think people are always afraid of things they don't understand, right? And the unknown it's easier to be afraid of it than to just trust that everything is swirling in our benefit, which is how I've chosen to live. And that's, so it's comforting to me, but don't be afraid.
Yeah, there are, you said the word gifts, which I agree with. There are big gifts in your ability to just really be curious about what you don't know. And that can be, a path that you can take, even just the curiosity. So there's one other thing I wanted to ask you about, something you said a second ago about the veil. Originally, maybe a while back in the beginning of my career, I would have said the same thing, like, what are you talking about? So now that you understand what that is, tell me a little bit more about it. Is it something that you're always aware of? And how are you aware of the veil?
So for me, I think where it's thinnest is in dreams, and that's where I took my story. You know, I think it's different for everybody. We probably all have a way to connect to spirits and the world that exists outside of what we can see. But for me, what I find is that on the days that I need a connection the most, when I go to sleep, I get that. So, I mean, I know part for me is I tend to do a lot of meditation prior to sleep, and who knows if maybe that just opens a doorway to get the answers to whatever I've meditated on. But I certainly believe that it's not something that is some really special gift that I have. I think we probably all have it. It's just a matter of honing our skills and being open. I mean, ultimately, I think the biggest part is saying I'm open to the parts of the world and the parts of life that I don't understand.
Yes, powerful, powerful mindset. I love it. Thank you, Jessica.
No, you're
Maysha,
welcome.
Maysha, welcome back to this third book. Thank you for being here again in this powerful series. Tell us about your amazing chapter.
Music is a universal language, and songwriting is my earliest greatest gift. This was a different chapter for me, and more difficult to write in some ways than the first one. I go back and I talk about my childhood, my very early childhood. I talk about my teenage years. I talk about my dad dying, and I talk about how my gift of songwriting impacted each of those times in my life. And I talk about the fact that using that gift of songwriting reach people in ways that perhaps other gifts don't, because other gifts aren't so acceptable, and because perhaps I didn't accept my other gifts at those times either. So it's a gift that we don't even realize is a gift sometimes, and we don't recognize that the arts that we have the ability to use are also gifts that reach people, and certainly music a universal one. And so I really didn't think of music that way for the longest time. And then as other gifts for me have unfolded, I've come to see that that is exactly what songwriting has been for me over my lifetime. And it was truly my earliest gift, in that it probably saved my life. So it was the parts I thought would be easy to write were the hardest, and the parts that I thought would be the hardest to write were the easiest. So it's going to be a very interesting chapter. I can't wait to get feedback from people to see what they think, because like when I turned it into you, it was like, wow, it didn't turn it all out at all like I thought. So I'm very excited about it. But yes, it's a chapter I'm proud of, and a topic I'm proud of. And I think it's a different approach, because when you talk about gifts, people don't expect you to talk about songwriting.
I loved the pieces that were the interaction with your dad. There was a profound relationship there that shaped you. Can you tell us just a little bit without giving it all away?
Wow. My dad and I had a kind of an awkward situation, because there was, to be frank, abuse there, but it was because of, not because he was a bad person, it's because of what he went through in his life. And so the gift that I had, my dad kind of wanted to live vicariously through me. And so I did that. I acquiesced to that, because I was a teenager. I was his child. I was his daughter. And so I did that. But it's how I learned who he was, and it's how I found out who he was. And it's also how I found out who I thought I was, and then found out it's not who I was. And so it's really, and it's also ironically, and not ironically, there's no irony really, as we know, it's what I wrote about in book 2 as well. I started it with writing about my dad. So it's really a continuation of that story between me and my dad, and how his voice was silenced, and thus why he raised me the way he did, not making him a bad person, but someone who our ancestral issues were the issue, has been the issue. So yeah, you get to meet my dad more and find out that because he was a troubled person who had flaws and faults did not make him a bad person. And our relationship was actually very good. And losing him has been very hard.
You're gifting us with an awareness process in the chapter that is just so beautiful of really of those abuse situations. So I thank you for that. Thank you, Maysha. So Judith Ann, I would love to hear about your amazing chapter.
Oh, thank you. So I have chapter 24, Stepping into My Light with Faith, Trust, and Intuition. And I talk about how I have always had my gifts as like a psychic and medium, but I didn't, and I trusted them when I was young, until I was, introduced into that it's unusual or different and not to. So I stepped away from that, but spirit never steps away. They're always with us. And so I talk about that journey of, learning to trust again beyond what I'm told in church. And that, it's okay. And yeah, maybe nobody else that has these gifts. At least at the time, I didn't know that. Other people had them. But it allowed me to slowly trust and lean on them for support, them being spirit and angels and my spirit guides. And over time, they gently but persistently reached out to me in ways that they knew they could reach me. And it took me about 10 years to figure out different things like flashing of lights were them and not just something wrong with the electrical system in every place that I lived. And to know that it's okay. And that actually when I stepped back into my light, if you will, and was okay with having my gifts, how it changed my life. And so that's what this chapter is about. And like other speakers here, this is my second book with you guys. And I thought that it would be easy to write, and it turns out it was harder. It was so hard, in fact, that I found myself crying in different points in the book that I thought would have been okay. So clearly I had things that I had to release energetically, and they did get released. And upon going back and rereading my book, my chapter again, I cried all over again, and I couldn't believe how cathartic it was. I mean, the first chapter I wrote in the first book, it was hard, but not like this. This was on a deeper soul level, and I was releasing things from past lives that I realized later. And I know because now I have that awareness, of the energy work that I do. But I'm just really excited to be sharing this chapter because I've had so many people ask me, how did I know that I was an intuitive? How did I know? And it's because I started seeing spirits, which is what I talk about at the beginning of the chapter. I talk about my great grandmother, and then announce it. Well, I won't go into more details. We'll leave it like that. So
gonna leave some
Yeah.
secrets for people. All right. Yes. So let me just say thank you to all three of you for stepping up, not only just to say yes to this project, but to do some of the work that Judith Ann was just talking about, like to be open to what happens in a therapeutic sense when you not only write the story, but you write with an intention to share it in a big ass way. Like the world might read this, right? And the world, we know as authors, we fill in the blank in our head of, oh, my mom might read this, my dad might read this, my sister might read this, my friend might read this. And we do this to ourselves, a lot of the time. But what I loved about what Judith Ann just said is that the process is healing for both the author and the reader. And you all infuse such beautiful energy and awareness into your writing and your process. So that's one of the biggest things I'm thanking you for, because it's felt when your reader reads the line and they cry with you. It's felt in those moments, right? This matters to me big time. So I appreciate all of you for, maybe you didn't know what you were signing up for when you said, the yes, but I appreciate you all for hanging in there and doing it. And, y'all warriors. So Maysha, I'm going to start with you on this next question. I'll come around to all of you for this, but finding my spiritual voice was about sharing things sometimes that I thought others might have criticism about. We were just sort of talking about that. It was about sharing, even though I was afraid of what people might think about it. And I call that kind of fear purpose-driven, because it has to do with something I was born to do, like Maysha talked about her songwriting and her singing. So Maysha, what I want to know is, did you have any resistance to sharing your spiritual stories at first, and why or why not?
Wow, I thought you were going to ask if I had any resistance about sharing stories about my dad, and I started doing that years ago. So that was going to be easy. This one's harder. My spiritual stories, no, and I'm going to tell you why I didn't. I had a son who was schizophrenic, and I had had fibromyalgia for years and suffered with fibro fog. And when I realized that the voices in my head my whole life, where I thought I was answering myself and figuring things out in my head, talking back, when I started feeling the energies that match the voices, I realized that, no, you're clairaudient. And I realized that other people like me with fibromyalgia, with fibro fog, would start going to their doctors and being diagnosed as something wrong with them and be put on more medications. And especially, and then I realized that people who had mental illness in their family, like I did, my son who was schizophrenic, would either not go seek help, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I was in the middle of a divorce. My son had died, my dad had died, all of this stuff was happening. And I was at my mom's, and I just went and sat down in front of my computer in front of all of my people and my audience that I talked to. And I said, okay, so here's something new for you all. I'm surrounded by my angel squad. And my mom, who's a Baptist through and through, I know was about to say holy, out loud. And I just started spilling it because and I didn't even, it was something I knew I had to do because I just knew that people were going to go and start being medicated for this. And I'd fought against that for so many years, fighting in the chronic pain and invisible illness world. So because I came from that world and it had done that gave me the strength and the courage, and I already had a leg up. Without that, yeah, I could see, but I already had a leg up. So that gave me an easy transition into it. But yeah, it's been scary in some ways. It was scary afterwards. Afterwards, it was like, what did I just do? I hope that made sense.
I know for me, it's hurt more to hold it than it did to get over the fear to share it. When you're over on the other side of it, it's easier. Obviously, you're over there. You see this huge wall of fire and you're like, I can't do it. But then when you jump through and you realize that wall was just like a millimeter thick, you should have jumped a long time ago, Yeah. Okay. So Judith Ann, what would you say to this question? Did you have any resistance to sharing the spiritual stories at first? Why or why not?
Well, I didn't when I started to write it. And then as I got further in and I started to think about everything that's ever happened, then I had a hard time choosing what was going to stay in the chapter and what wasn't. And that was probably the hardest to share. And I found that the pieces that I left in there were actually the harder ones to share. And I hadn't intended on that. Yeah, so it wasn't hard because I was afraid of what people would think. I have a platform now, and I have my tribe, if you will, of people that even if they don't get it, they're open to it. So that part wasn't so difficult. In fact, I've had a lot of people say that they can't wait to read it. And yeah, I guess I would say no. It was okay. I mean, if you had asked me 6 months ago, yeah, it would have been really hard because I didn't have the platform that I have now. And I would have gone into it with trepidation. But because I've been speaking a lot on it and fiercely speaking about it, because I believe that everybody's in different stages of awakening and ascension. it's gotten easier. So the more I've been talking about it, I just feel like this chapter for this book was the next logical step.
Yes, nice. You're making me think of the people at all stages of maybe have never shared before, all the way over to standing on a stage all the time and, you know, speaking their mind or whatever. But we're all in different levels of this. And of course, Dianna's mission here, find your voice, save your life. Like, this is what this is about, right? And I love, thank you all for talking about your process and your own personal journey, because you know how that's going to help somebody else, give them permission to do theirs. Jessica, how about you? Tell me about any resistance you might have had to sharing that spiritual story, either this time or maybe, you know, a while ago. How was it for you?
So this time I really didn't have any, and it all stems from about 10 years ago. I was going through a really big life transformation. I essentially blew up my entire life and kind of restarted. And as a part of that, I said, I want to write. And I was a pharmacist, not a writer, but that was what my heart's calling was. So I said, you know what, I'm going to chase this down. I'm going to follow this. And I ended up doing an internship with Elephant Journal, and the director of the internship and owner of the company, one of the things that he said should be our guiding principle when we wrote was, may it be of benefit. And so that's been my North Star in any of the times I've written. And I remember maybe 6 years ago, I wrote something about having a miscarriage. And to me, that's probably the biggest scarring experience of my life. And years later, I ran into someone and they said, your name looks familiar. Did you write about miscarriage? And I was like, yeah, I did. And she's like, that got me through it. And I thought, this stranger in a different country read my words and it mattered. And so what I've chosen to do is trust that if there's a story trying to get out, it's because it's either going to benefit me or there's some far-reaching benefit that I have no idea about, and I may never know, or maybe years later I'll meet someone on the street that will recognize my crazy name. So I just trust those instincts, and hasn't led me astray yet.
I love that story. I think that's true for everybody who is writing right now, especially for this particular project. I know that that's true, that there's always someone there. And we may not be lucky enough that they reached out and told us, or that we run into them later. But I think I want every author to know they are there nonetheless. They are there, they're reading, they're feeling, their lives are changing in the moment of reading. It's very, very powerful. Thank you, Jessica. Okay, so to me, being a healer is about guiding people on the journey. It's about awareness. Feeling is healing. So helping empower people to feel is part of this whole thing for me. So Judith Ann, I'm going to start with you on this one. Tell us about that. What does that personal practice of awareness look like in your day-to-day?
That's evolved over time. It started with a quick prayer, usually when I'm in my car getting ready to pull out of the driveway. I would say something like, protect me and keep me safe and bless my interactions with everyone I meet today. And that's everyone, including going to the post office or sitting in traffic. So that's not, just the like in person, but also like a bit of a distance as well. And then also grounding myself. I do this before I even get out of bed in the morning. So going before I'm actually sitting in my car, laying in bed, thanking my guides, angels, spirit. And I can feel the warmth. Now, before I couldn't feel it, but now I can feel it. And it's beautiful and gentle. And I ground myself into the earth, and I just imagine light. I used to imagine roots, but now I imagine light just flowing through my body and connecting me to Mother Earth. And I'll just, throughout my day, when I need to clear my energy, I'll just say I clear my energy. And I don't even have to visualize it anymore. I just have to mildly think it and it's done. And then I say I surround myself in love and light. So I'm doing that consistently all day, and I'm noticing the change because I worked with somebody, a client who's going through a lot, and normally that would zap my energy. And I noticed this past weekend that I was okay. And that was the first time that I've been okay, because I maybe I just hit a new threshold with it. But there is something to be said, because everything is energy and everything is love. So when we start to acknowledge it, then we can feel the awesomeness as it flows through us, and we can feel everything else around it like nature. And it's really a beautiful thing. So I'll do that in the morning, and then I'll finish it out in the evening as well. And it's just a very simple practice, and it doesn't take much to implement. And it's helped me change my life, my energy, and my connections to other people.
And there's so much that I love about what you said, but the biggest thing for me is, did you hear Judith Ann talk about the fact that this practice has evolved? And even now, you know, she's here sharing herself in a stage where she's come a long way, and there was an aha moment over here too. And there's these moments along the way where you're getting to, I'll just call it the next level of whatever that means for you, right? You realize that the other favorite thing that you said for me was it comes faster now. I just have to barely think it, and and it's happening, and I can feel it. So I want to say that to encourage our listeners today, that it's a journey, it's a practice, it evolves over time, it gets more and more fun and faster and more amazing, and you can count on that. And unfortunately or fortunately, you can't go back. Like once you're there, then you just got to wait for the next magic. And sometimes we judge how that shows up, good or bad, right? But I've looked at all of the things in my life as opportunities versus jumping to the label. Oh, this is bad. No, wait a minute. Let me just get curious. You're right. What else is possible here? So, oh, you're getting me started, Judith Ann. Thank you. You know, these topics, they're so amazing, right? Jessica, how about you? What's the day-to-day awareness practice look like for you?
I liked when Judith said that it's evolved, because it's definitely been that same story for me. I always thought that the way that I recharged my batteries was linked to my overarchingly extroverted nature. And so I would surround myself with people and things and action, and that did work. But it's been interesting. In probably the last 10 years or so, I've found that my supercharge comes actually from silence, either in nature or just in my own meditation. I find that's how I really ground myself. And interesting, linking back to the story I wrote, is when I take the time to really do a meditation before bed, that's when I have the most clear dreams of the people that I've lost. So it's been interesting for me to learn that I can recharge my batteries in two ways, but the way that probably is the most spiritually linked is via silence, which was an uncomfortable place to sit to begin with, because that wasn't my instinct. But now, you know, it's funny when people will want to get together, and I'm like, I don't know, I think today's going to be a silent day. I'm gonna stay at home. They're like, who are you? I'm like, but I'm happier, so it's for the best.
Yeah, I find that I crave it more and more. Very, very similar to it. So you and Judith Ann both are talking about those times at bedtime or morning time. I love those times. I want people to understand that those are very interesting opportunities. As you guys know, when you're half awake in the morning, not quite all the way there, and there's that state of consciousness where messages come through or whatever that is. And this can be a practice. That's part of my practice as well. And then the nighttime and the dreaming and the setting yourself up for that beautiful sleep at night also, like Jessica was talking about. So beautiful, beautiful ways. I remember it was a quote from Wayne Dyer, and he said, I want you to spend the first 5 minutes of the morning and the last 5 minutes of the day and be in gratitude. And if that's all we do, that's going to be a start on the journey, right? A powerful one, actually. Maysha, talk to me about your day-to-day, in terms of the practice of awareness.
Well, mine too has evolved, which everyone's is going to. That's part of it. And I love that Judith said that, well, everything is energy, because and energy is, it's energy in motion, emotion. And so, and it's got to do with frequency. And as Dr. Hawkins identified the frequencies, and it was different emotions, or down here, the lower frequencies were the lower emotions, sadness, etc., and the higher ones, joy, etc. And so a good deal of my practice has been about not allowing myself to be in the lower emotions, but to be in the higher ones, which I didn't even understand years ago why I did that. I thought it was just about, well, if I'm in a good mood, things are better. If I, it's my job to be in a good mood. It's my role in people's lives to bring everybody up. It's that, but now I understand it is my job, but it's my job in my life too, because that is where I'm happy, healthier, etc. It's to raise my vibration, and so that's what I spend. I spend time, especially in the mornings, connecting with source. As you say, when you first wake up, that's the first thing I do, because that is when messages come through. That is, so I definitely do that. I spend time making sure that my vibration is where it needs to be, my frequency is where it needs to be. I spend a lot of time in walking meditations, as you know, because I do a lot of walking, a lot of meditation that way. I incorporate it with motion. I do a lot of grounding. I have a lot of practices like that, which are necessary. Clearing energy, moving energy through. And then I also do the same thing in the evenings, just like Jessica was talking about. And I am very big on manifesting, but not in the way that other people have talked about it. I believe the way we manifest our lives is by being in alignment with our authentic selves. And when we do that, the lives we're supposed to have, the lives that are our best and highest good, the right timeline for us, is what we manifest. And so to have the life we want, to have the life that best serves me, that is best for me and how I best serve others, is to do the things I just talked about. So instead of spending my time, well, I want this car, I want to manifest this, I want to manifest that. Well, I want to manifest the best life I can. So be my authentic self. And these are the things I have to do to be that. So it's easy to get caught up in, well, I want a really good life. And so I want these things, these things, these things. Well, I found that to get those things, it's go within and do the work, so that outwardly you're vibrating the way you should be, and then that life happens, but you're also serving other people. And so that's the approach I take, and it's been a journey getting there. And I found that when I was younger, I was kind of doing some of that naturally, innately, and then failed miserably at it, and then went back to doing it naturally, innately. And it's a process, but that's kind of my life in a nutshell.
I love it. And I love talking about that vibration, the manifestation. These words get thrown around and people kind of roll their eyes at them. But honestly, when you understand the energy of it, and then what you're responsible for, everything becomes clear, and there is pure freedom there. And, we don't sometimes want to take responsibility for all that, but taking responsibility for every single thing in your life, including down to the vibration you are emitting right this moment, is really pure freedom. And it's what allows us to have everything that we could possibly imagine, right? Oh my gosh, yeah, that's going to be another one. Like, don't get me started, because we'll go all day on that one. All right, listen, we're going to wrap up today with one more question. So my challenge to all of you is to give me the speed dating answer to this one, okay? A sentence or two. I know this is going to be hard for you guys. Jessica, so what piece of advice would you give someone watching today who might just be stepping on the healing path, spiritual path, to give them just an easy entry point, one simple thing to start with? What would your one simple thing be?
I would say be patient with yourself and ask for help. You're not alone.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you. Okay, Maysha, your turn.
It's fine to listen to what everyone else is doing and to learn, but for goodness sakes, don't think that you have to do what everyone else is doing. Be very open to what within feels right to you, because that's what's going to work for you. And in the end, that's what you're going to find your path is. So don't think that your journey is everyone else's journey.
I love it. Super important. Judith Ann, you're going to close us out today. What's your one simple thing?
Feel into what feels right. Rather than overanalyze it in our minds and get stuck up there. Start to feel into your heart space, as simply as, should I have coffee this morning or tea? And or should I accept this job interview, or should I decline it? And most people are going to go, but it's the feeling of it. So I say trust the feelings, because when people talk about that gut response in their stomach, it's the same thing. It just happens to be in the heart space. So when you feel into that, then you get a clearer sense of what feels good for you, and you'll know, and your guides will work with you on that. So that's what I would say is, and to be kind to yourself. It's not going to come right away, but it will come.
Beautiful. Okay, here were the three summarized for all of you. So reach out, get help. You're not alone. Listen to that inner wisdom versus all of the outside stuff coming at you. It's great to learn things, but what does that inner voice have to tell you? And feel into it, into your heart space, versus trying to analyze everything and overthink. Y'all are brilliant. Authors, seriously, thank you so much for what you do in the world and for being here today to share it with everybody. So you guys, the excitement begins November 22nd at 12 noon Eastern, when we're going to celebrate with a live stream party on the Brave Healer Productions page to celebrate Find Your Voice, Save Your Life, Powerful Healers, Spiritual Stories. And I have you hooked up down below with that link to the event. Please take the next step with these amazing people here in front of you today, because what I also have hooked up down there are their websites. Click, explore, connect. These women are generously here for that. And they are amazing, and they will be a guide for you. And that is a compassionate, badass cheerleader guide. Like, I could use all the sorts of amazing words about these people. You all are amazing. So thank you for that. You guys are going to find many of our authors on the Find Your Voice, Save Your Life. Oops, maybe I said that wrong. Find Your Voice Women page on Facebook. So this is Dianna's free group to our community, and you can come in there and continue this conversation that we were having today. Ask the authors questions, right? So I've got you hooked up with that as well. And lastly, everybody, remember, your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. It's time to be brave. See you next time, everyone. Thank you, authors.